monarchy will be shifting in a slightly different direction.
I think it's safe to say that change is...
The declaration lasted less than 4 minutes, but it altered the future of the British monarchy in a way no ordinary royal announcement ever could. King Charles entered the chamber as the reigning sovereign. Prince William left it, carrying the authority of a man expected to govern in his father's name. There was no celebration, no ceremonial applause, and no time for hesitation. Britain had just been given a Crown Regent, and behind the decision stood a crisis the palace could no longer conceal. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles knew everyone in that room understood what was coming. Royals had been summoned to Buckingham Palace before sunrise, their phones surrendered and questions unanswered. A sealed red folder waited. No one had been brought there to debate. They had been brought there to witness history. The king opened the declaration and began to read. A Crown Regent, he explained, was a royal figure temporarily entrusted to perform the sovereign's essential constitutional and ceremonial duties, while the monarch remained on the throne. Then came the sentence that changed everything. Charles formally named William Crown Regent of Britain, giving him authority to act in the king's name. Charles paused before saying William's name. His fingers pressed against the page, and for one strained moment, he seemed unable to release it. The monarch had waited most of his life to wear the crown. Now he was placing part of its power into another man's hands. William did not smile. The prince looked directly at his father and asked, "Is there truly no other way?" Charles offered no speech. He simply slid the signed declaration across the table. Camilla moved at once. The queen consort reached toward the folder, only for a senior courtier to place one hand over it. He told her the document could not leave the chamber. She froze, stunned that the wording had been approved without her knowledge, and that William now stood closer to the crown's machinery than she did. One mystery remained. A sealed clause had not been read aloud. Only Charles, William, and the keeper of the Privy Seal, the official responsible for authenticating royal documents, knew what it contained. The king removed his signet ring, turned it once between his fingers, and placed it beside William's copy. The gesture carried no legal force, yet everyone understood its meaning. Camilla remained seated as the prince left with the red folder. She knew this was no temporary adjustment. Power had shifted. Before William could use it, the family would have to face what Charles had given away. Behind the historic language of regency stood 3 people confronting 3 very different losses. Charles feared becoming a monarch in name but no longer in action. William faced the possibility that duty had arrived before he was emotionally ready. Camilla saw the structure around her changing without her consent. The emergency declaration did not simply redistribute responsibility. It exposed every insecurity the family had buried beneath ceremony, and forced them to decide whether loyalty meant obedience, sacrifice, or survival. Charles had spent his entire life preparing to reign, and now the transfer of active authority felt like a cruel reversal. A crown regent was the royal figure temporarily empowered to carry out the sovereign's central duties while the monarch remained on the throne. The king still possessed the crown, but he would now watch his son perform the work that had defined his own purpose. Charles refused pity. In a private sitting room, an aide suggested softening the public announcement so the change would appear gradual. The monarch cut him off. He insisted that the declaration must sound firm, clear, and final, yet his voice tightened when he said William's name. The aide lowered his eyes. Charles noticed and hated that he had been noticed. William carried a different fear. The prince understood that becoming crown regent had placed him between 2 identities, the loyal son protecting his father, and the future king expected to act without hesitation. Catherine found him standing alone beside an unopened briefing box, one hand resting on its lid. The Princess of Wales asked why he had not opened it. He admitted that he had always imagined succeeding Charles one day, but never while his father could still watch every decision. Camilla wanted answers. The queen consort asked whether William could now overrule household arrangements she had controlled for years. The response from the palace secretary was careful, but unmistakable. Wherever the declaration applied, the prince's authority came first. She said nothing, yet her silence carried anger, fear, and the sudden knowledge that influence could disappear without warning. Anne noticed the shift before anyone explained it. The Princess Royal studied the seating chart for the next council meeting, and saw William's chair moved beside Charles, rather than opposite him. A council meeting was a formal gathering where senior royal and state matters were discussed. Anne understood immediately that symbolism had become structure, and structure would soon become power. Charles made the distance undeniable during a tense family discussion. Instead of calling his son William, he said, "Your Royal Highness." The room fell silent. The future king looked at his father, and the formality between them felt colder than anger. Catherine later opened the briefing box and found a cancelled engagement bearing Charles's handwritten instruction, "He must take this now." The date proved the king had been preparing the transfer long before anyone suspected it. That single sentence pointed back to the moment Charles privately accepted that the monarchy could no longer depend on him alone. The Regency Declaration was not born in the emergency chamber. Its true beginning came 11 nights earlier, during a ceremony that should have passed without consequence. One missed line, one unsteady pause, and one private conversation changed everything. Those who witnessed the incident agreed to silence. Charles returned to the palace, determined to continue as though nothing had happened. But William had seen the moment clearly, and from that night onward, father and son were moving toward a decision neither wished to name. Charles had been struggling long before anyone dared speak openly. His briefings grew shorter, long journeys were rearranged, and duties once reserved for the sovereign quietly moved onto William's schedule. That mattered, because every altered engagement raised the same dangerous question. Was the king still controlling the pace, or was the palace already preparing for someone else to carry it? Aides hid the strain with precision. Public programs looked unchanged, but privately, they prepared two versions of every major event, one led by Charles and another led by the prince. An investiture, meaning a formal ceremony where honors are presented in the monarch's name, became the setting for the moment no one could explain away. Charles reached the oath inside St. George's Hall and suddenly lost his place. The king gripped the lectern and stared at the page. Seconds passed. No one moved. William saw fear cross his father's face, stepped beside him, and completed the unfinished words. Charles waited until the room had emptied before turning on his son. The monarch accused him of making the weakness visible when silence might have protected it. William did not retreat. The prince said he had stepped forward because his father looked frightened, not because he wanted the crown. William pushed further. He told Charles that preserving appearances had become more dangerous than admitting the truth. The king turned away, wounded by the words because he knew they were honest. His son had not humiliated him. He had saved the ceremony. Charles summoned William again later that night, this time without aides. The monarch asked whether he would accept emergency authority if the crown required it. The future king hesitated, knowing that one answer could change both their lives. Camilla waited outside and heard only part of the exchange. The queen consort caught Charles saying, "The country must never feel the crown hesitate." She missed William's reply, leaving her unsure whether he had resisted the role or quietly claimed it. Charles placed the unfinished oath between them. William smoothed the creased page, pushed it back, and said, "I will carry it with you, but I will not take it from you." By morning, constitutional advisors specialists, who guide the monarch on the legal use of royal authority, had been ordered to draft the declaration. When Camilla learned what had begun, she resolved to stop it before temporary power became permanent reality. The private promise between father and son was about to become a family confrontation, and Camilla would not enter it quietly. The first open challenge to William's new authority did not come from Parliament, the press, or the public. It came from inside the palace. Hours after the declaration, Camilla requested a private meeting with the newly appointed Crown Regent. No secretaries attended. No official minutes were taken. What began as a question about procedure became a deeply personal confrontation over loyalty, influence, and the future of Charles himself. By the time the door opened again, the family's hidden divisions could no longer be disguised. Camilla entered determined to force clarity. The queen consort asked whether William's powers now extended over the king's schedule, private correspondence, royal residences, and senior household appointments. A royal household was the network of aides and officials who managed the sovereign's duties and daily affairs. Her questions sounded procedural, but the fear beneath them was unmistakable. She needed to know how much control remained within her reach. William answered carefully. The prince said he would act only where the declaration gave him authority, but he made one point brutally clear. No decision affecting Charles's official duties would proceed without his approval. That mattered because the king's schedule shaped what the country saw, while control over correspondence and appointments shaped what the monarch heard. Camilla accused him of moving too quickly. She argued that accepting the title before the family could discuss it had made Charles appear weak and diminished. William did not raise his voice. He replied that his father had acted because delay had become dangerous, and because protecting pride could no longer come before protecting the crown. William then asked the question she had been avoiding. Was Camilla defending the king's dignity or defending her own closeness to power? The Crown Regent was the person temporarily trusted to carry out the sovereign's central duties, and his words now carried the weight of that office. She rose from her chair, visibly shaken, and warned him never to confuse authority with judgment. Camilla revealed what she knew next. The Queen Consort had learned that the sealed clause allowed William to reorganize the royal household during the regency. She feared he could remove the advisors on whom she had relied for years. William opened a folder already waiting beside him. The prince turned it around and showed her a list of officials whose authority would be reviewed. Camilla immediately spotted one of her closest advisors near the top. Camilla pushed the folder away. "You are treating your father's absence as your arrival." William pulled it back and met her eyes. "I am treating his trust as a command." Camilla left without another word and deliberately kept the door open behind her. The prince crossed the room and closed it himself. Minutes later, she went directly to Charles and demanded that he restrict his son's power. The king listened, reached into his desk, and produced another document she had never seen. Camilla believed Charles would restore the old balance. Instead, that second document proved he had already chosen who would control the new one. The public declaration gave William a title. The sealed instrument gave him power. Prepared under Charles's direct instruction, the document defined exactly what the Crown Regent could command and who could not obstruct him. Camilla entered the king's private office expecting to persuade her husband to narrow the arrangement. Instead, she discovered that the monarch had anticipated resistance from within his own household. Every signature had been secured. Every objection had been considered, and Charles had left almost no path backward. Charles placed the sealed instrument between them. It was the formal document that turned the public announcement into working authority, allowing William to chair state briefings, approve royal engagements, direct essential household operations, and represent the sovereign in urgent constitutional matters. That mattered because whoever controlled those decisions controlled the daily movement of the crown. Camilla sat opposite her husband and asked why she had never been consulted. The Queen Consort had expected influence, if not approval, over a decision that would reshape their lives. Charles answered without softness. The king told her the declaration concerned the functioning of the monarchy, not the comfort of the family. Camilla pressed him again. She warned that transferring so much authority could make the country believe he had already surrendered the throne. Charles reminded her that he remained king, retained legal sovereignty, and held the final right to revoke the arrangement. Abdication meant formally giving up the crown. This was not abdication. It was deliberate delegation, designed to prevent uncertainty without ending his reign. Charles then admitted what he had hidden. The monarch told her that another public hesitation could make Britain question whether the crown was still capable of acting decisively. He had feared that moment more than humiliation, more than gossip, and even more than losing control. Anne had already supported the decision. The Princess Royal had signed as a senior family witness after Charles asked whether William could withstand the pressure. She answered that he could, but only if others stopped trying to govern through him. Her warning had shaped the final clause. Camilla read that clause twice. The document barred any consort, household advisor, or private secretary from overruling the Crown Regent in delegated matters. She understood at once that it prevented a competing center of influence. Charles offered no apology. The Queen Consort placed the pages carefully on the desk and removed her glasses without speaking. Anne later found William alone in the corridor. The Princess Royal noticed his trembling hands and told him authority did not remove fear. It only removed the luxury of surrendering to it. The prince steadied himself, but her words stayed with him. The legal battle was over. William now prepared his first command as Crown Regent, and it would affect Charles personally. The title would become real only when he used it, and his first decision would strike at the king's own public role. William's first order as Crown Regent was not ceremonial. It was immediate, practical, and painful. A major national service was approaching, and Charles still intended to lead it, despite the warnings surrounding him. The prince faced an impossible choice: allow his father to appear and risk another crisis, or exercise his new authority by removing the king from the center of the event. When William finally gave the command, the palace understood that the regency was no symbolic arrangement. Charles had been scheduled to lead a national remembrance service before political leaders, military commanders, and foreign representatives. The ceremony mattered deeply because it connected the sovereign to sacrifice, duty, and public memory. Missing it would not feel like losing an engagement. It would feel like surrendering one of the most personal duties of his reign. Advisors urged him to withdraw. Medical and constitutional briefings warned that the program was too demanding and that another public hesitation could deepen uncertainty around the monarchy. A constitutional briefing was formal guidance on how royal decisions might affect the crown and the state. Charles rejected every warning and ordered his ceremonial uniform prepared. William studied the papers alone. The prince knew that loyalty could no longer mean silence, so he signed a directive assigning himself the central role while offering his father a shorter private appearance. A directive was an official instruction carrying immediate authority under the regency. His hand paused over the page, but he signed it anyway. Charles received the revised program and circled William's name in dark ink. The king asked whether his son now intended to decide when he could be seen by his own people. The question cut deeper than anger. It carried humiliation, fear, and the pain of a father watching his purpose move into another man's hands. William entered the dressing room without aids. The Crown Regent told Charles that allowing him to struggle publicly would not be loyalty. It would be cowardice disguised as devotion. The monarch stared at him, stunned by the bluntness, yet he knew the words came from fear rather than ambition. Camilla urged resistance. The queen consort warned Charles that withdrawing would make the new arrangement appear permanent. She pressed him to attend and reclaim control, but for the first time, the king listened without immediately accepting her advice. Charles stood before his uniform and touched the medals already laid out. He told the valet to return them to storage. The servant hesitated, then closed the wardrobe doors. The consequences spread quickly. Household officials redirected major briefing papers through William's office. Some welcomed the clarity. Others feared that years of personal influence had disappeared in a single command. William returned after the service expecting fury. Instead, he found Charles alone, watching the broadcast. The king looked toward him and quietly asked his son to sit beside him. For the first time since the declaration, no lawyers, courtiers, or royal titles stood between them, only a father watching his son carry what had once been his alone. The turning point came not in a council chamber, but in a darkened private room after the cameras had gone. Charles had watched William lead the service with calm authority, never once appearing triumphant. The performance should have comforted him. Instead, it forced the king to confront the truth he had resisted. His son was ready precisely because he had never demanded to be. When William entered, neither man spoke as monarch or regent. They spoke as father and son. William had carried out the national ceremony without error. The prince honored Charles throughout, making clear that every duty had been performed in the sovereign's name. A sovereign was the reigning monarch who remained the legal head of the crown. That distinction mattered because the country had seen responsibility transfer without seeing the reign itself come to an end. Charles understood what had been preserved. The monarchy had not appeared leaderless, and the declaration had achieved its purpose. Yet success brought pain. The king had watched the nation remain calm while another man stood where he should have stood, and that calm forced him to face how easily public duty could continue without him. William entered expecting anger. The future king had prepared explanations, arguments, and even an apology, but none of them felt useful when he saw his father staring at the empty chair where he would normally have sat during the service. Charles spoke first. The monarch admitted that missing the ceremony had not been the hardest part. What wounded him was realizing that Britain had remained steady without seeing him at the center. He had spent his life believing the crown demanded constant presence. Now he was being asked to accept that continuity sometimes required absence. William moved closer, but Charles was not finished. The king revealed through their recorded private conversation that several advisors had proposed a temporary committee to divide emergency authority. He had rejected it because shared control would invite rivalry, confusion, and quiet competition inside the palace. Charles had chosen William alone. The monarch said the final test came after the St. George's Hall incident, when his son promised to carry the burden without taking the crown. That answer convinced him that the prince wanted to protect the institution, not use weakness as an opening. William knelt beside his father's chair rather than sitting opposite him. Charles placed one hand on his shoulder and said, "You did not replace me today. You protected what I could no longer protect alone." William promised that every act of the regency would preserve the king's dignity. Charles answered with unexpected firmness. He told his son never to protect appearances at the cost of truth again. The fear between them finally loosened. Father and son had not defeated one another. They had accepted what neither could carry alone. By morning, that private understanding belonged to Britain, and millions would decide what the Crown Regent now represented. At 6 o'clock the next morning, the declaration became public. Within minutes, palace gates filled with cameras, newspaper presses changed their front pages, and broadcasters abandoned their scheduled programs. Britain had known regencies in history, but never one announced with such emotional immediacy in the modern age. Some saw a constitutional safeguard. Others saw the beginning of a new reign without an abdication. Yet one image outside Buckingham Palace captured the public feeling more powerfully than any headline could. Buckingham Palace confirmed that Charles remained sovereign, while William assumed the duties listed under the emergency Crown Regent declaration. A sovereign was the reigning monarch who still held the legal crown, while a regent carried specific duties in that monarch's name. The statement repeated that distinction because the palace needed the country to understand one crucial truth. Authority had shifted, but the reign had not ended. William acted on behalf of his father, not in place of him. The wording avoided any language of succession, because succession meant the formal passing of the crown to the next monarch. That had not happened. Even so, the public felt the emotional strain of being asked to honor one king, while watching his son perform the most visible duties of kingship. Charles drew praise from those who believed he had placed national stability before personal pride. Critics saw something more troubling. They argued that the new title created two centers of feeling, one man still wearing the crown and another carrying its daily weight. The disagreement spread quickly, because this was no distant legal matter. It touched the oldest questions surrounding monarchy: who truly leads when power and title no longer rest in the same hands? Camilla faced that question outside Clarence House. The Queen Consort paused when a journalist asked whether she supported William's appointment. Her answer was brief and carefully chosen. "I support His Majesty." She declared loyalty to Charles, but she did not openly embrace the regency. The omission became as powerful as the words. London newspapers captured the tension before breakfast. One front page showed the king's empty ceremonial chair beside William, standing at the remembrance service. Across the image ran a simple headline: "The King trusts his son." The message turned uncertainty into something more human, a father placing faith in the man who would one day follow him. Crowds gathered at Buckingham Palace as the morning deepened. An elderly veteran placed two small flags against the gates, one bearing Charles's emblem and the other William's. He told those nearby that the symbols belonged side by side. His gesture became the image repeated across broadcasts. William later delivered his first address from St. James's Palace, the historic royal residence used for formal state occasions. The Crown Regent promised that every duty would reflect his father's service, judgment, and devotion. Charles sat in the front row. When his son finished, the king rose before anyone else. That gesture ended the question of division. The nation had witnessed a transfer without surrender. Now the monarchy had to define what that shared act had permanently changed. In the end, the emergency declaration was not a story of a son seizing power from his father. It was the story of a king confronting his limits, before those limits endangered the institution he had sworn to protect. Charles did not abandon the crown. William did not claim it. One man remained sovereign, while the other accepted the burden of action. Their decision changed the monarchy because it replaced the illusion of solitary strength with something more difficult: trust. William continued as Crown Regent under clearly defined authority. The role allowed him to carry out specific duties in the sovereign's name, while Charles remained king, received state papers, and participated in major decisions. This balance mattered because it protected continuity without forcing the monarch to carry the full physical burden of public duty. Palace officials adopted one clear chain of command. No advisor, family member, or separate household could bypass the prince in matters delegated to him. That structure removed the confusion that had once threatened to divide the family and ensured that every decision followed a single path. Charles slowly regained something he had feared was gone forever: dignity. The king no longer had to prove his strength by appearing at every event or hiding every moment of weakness. His reduced schedule stopped looking like disappearance. It became deliberate stewardship, allowing him to choose the duties where his presence carried the greatest meaning. William accepted authority without triumph. The future king never used the declaration to present himself as monarch, and every formal appearance included an acknowledgement of his father. His restraint proved that ambition had not driven him forward. Loyalty had. Camilla also accepted the new reality. The queen consort remained Charles's closest personal support, but she no longer attempted to shape the constitutional machinery around him. Her influence still mattered, yet it no longer competed with William's delegated authority. Catherine became the prince's emotional anchor, while Anne served as his uncompromising guide. The Princess of Wales steadied him in private, and the Princess Royal challenged him whenever power threatened to become isolation. Together, they helped turn the regency into a source of unity rather than division. Charles made the final meaning clear at the next state gathering. The king entered first and took his place beneath the royal standard, the flag representing the sovereign's presence. William followed, stopping beside him rather than moving ahead. The monarch extended his hand. His son took it. No explanation was needed. Naming William Crown Regent did not mark Charles's defeat. It became his most selfless act as sovereign, the moment he proved that protecting the monarchy mattered more than protecting the appearance of personal control. The emergency declaration began with fear, but it ended with certainty. The crown survived because a father trusted his son, and a son chose to carry the monarchy without taking it away from him. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.